So the governor mentioned in his remarks about the state freight and logistics plan, and he's right. The federal government in the latest federal transportation bill called MAP 21 calls for all states to create a transportation plan that deals with freight and logistics. Well, we're ahead of the game because several years back we decided we needed to do this for Georgia, not because the federal government's requiring it, because it needed to be done. So we hired Cambridge Systematics, which is out of the north, but they do a lot of work here in Georgia, and they have a lot of expertise right here on the staff, and they did a terrific job working with our staff at GDOT and the planning staff. And we also work with industry partners, and Toby Carr's here. Toby, stand up a second. Toby is the director of planning now, and we had a number of people on the committee that worked with us, included Georgia Ports Authority, Home Depot, CSX, Norfolk Southern, just a whole host of folks from different groups like Georgia Motor Trucking Association, Railroad Association, and others. So what did the study find? Let's kind of walk through that. We went through a pretty thorough analysis. We step by step through setting a framework and then doing economic evaluation and then laying out ultimately a long-range plan. But one of the things we found out is that if you had $1 for every person who said we need a bypass around Atlanta, we could actually build the bypass. Because everybody thinks that, hey, we just got to get the trucks out of Georgia. The trucks are coming in from the port, they're going through Georgia, and they're not staying here. What we found was a little bit different. The data shows that 30% of the trucks entering Georgia actually are through trips, but the rest are going to destinations in Georgia, which means we got a thriving economy. We've got a huge distribution network here in Georgia. They're going to centers all around Metro Atlanta, all around Macon, other places, and then get distributed from there. So it really changes your thought process a little bit about what you want to do. So we looked at our freight logistics from more than just roadways, but we looked at it from marine side, the roadway side, the freight air side, and the railway side. So let's go through each of those strategies. First, the marine strategy. Hey, this is as simple as it gets. We support the governor and what the governor said. We want to deepen that channel. So we allow those Panamax ships to come in here. In long term, obviously we want to make sure that we work with South Carolina on the Jasper side and making sure they have a port in the long term. But for short term, we've got to get that channel deeper. All right, so on the highway strategy, well, let's talk about some specifics. You'll notice on this map, not every road is wide. And obviously, you can't just say wide in every interstate in Georgia, but it does identify the ones that are the highest priority. And we need to touch I-85 north up to South Carolina, I-85 south down to toward Columbus and toward Auburn, toward going into Alabama. But on I-75, the section between Macon and Atlanta is obviously the most congested, and then we want to target I-20 going to the west. So those would be our capacity expansions we want to tackle next. And then around Atlanta, obviously you've got some key bottlenecks and interchanges on the north side at 75 and 285, and on the northeast side at 75 and 285, 85 and 285. And then obviously the interchanges on 20 on either side of the city, we have a lot of problems at as well. And you can see statewide, we also need improvements right there in the heart of Georgia in Macon. We've got about a $400 million project in 16 I-75 in Macon, but we need to redo that interchange. And then down at Savannah, ultimately we need to redo the 16 and 95 interchange, and also State Route 21 and 95 interchange. We are looking at other bypasses. So I said that earlier about you don't need bypasses. Well, you do need bypasses, but it doesn't ring true that you need it so bad as what originally said. So we're looking at the Atlanta, something around Atlanta, starting kind of Macon and going over toward LaGrange, and ultimately using some of the capacity we have now in US 27, which runs up on the west side of the state and eventually up to Rome. And we also look at connectivity on 441 and 84 and other parts of the state. We want to make sure 441 is a viable alternative, and it's an alternative used by truckers that have distribution centers that are in these smaller towns all across Georgia. But we really want to focus in on some of these last mile connector projects. As you get your product to near your destination, we've got issues with trying to get truckers around State Route 6 out here at Thornton Road and other projects around Savannah, which I'll show you in a second. On the rail side, it's real simple. We want to really push for and aid as much as we can the railroad industry in making sure we get good double tracking and making sure we have proper sidings in place. And also we want to make sure we can increase that weight limit to 286,000 for rail traffic as needed. And then looking at our bridges, we're trying to do a complete inventory of where we have vertical clearances that cause trouble with double stacking. All right, continue on the rail strategy. Obviously, we've got terminal in Savannah and Atlanta, and making sure those are done as efficiently as possible, but those are constrained somewhat. The area they can work in is constrained, so look at other places like Cordell. Cordell's got a huge import facility they're trying to expand and get going. They just got it started the last couple of years and doing a great job, and we want to make sure that we can expand the bulk and carload terminals in Savannah and Atlanta as much as feasibly possible. On the air cargo side, surprisingly, as we went through this, there's a lot of cargo coming out of Hartsville. Particularly 95% of all the cargo in Georgia on air cargo is actually out of Hartsville. But there are other airports in Georgia that want to be part of that game. So you got, particularly Albany is trying to expand their airport, expand their ability to handle UPS and DHL, since they have sorting facilities already in Albany. So kind of give you a quick summary of this. If you invest, good things happen. That's what it says. I think the governor said for every dollar you invest, you get $3.50 or more in return. This becomes a no-brainer. If you really do the math, investing in transportation, whether it be rail, ports, highways, or air cargo, yield good products at the end of the day. So we've got to make those investments in Georgia. Now, what have we done? Well, we got a transportation bill in Congress that passed last year that really doesn't do this. It says, hey, states, do a freight logistics plan, but doesn't give us any money to do the plan. It says, make these improvements, but yet we don't have enough to do the improvements. So we're struggling on the federal side. When you gas up your car or your truck, you're paying 18.4 cents in gas, federal gas tax, and 24.4 cents in diesel. That goes back to the states, but that's not enough money to do the improvements that we're talking about here today. So we tried in Georgia to pass this regional sales tax. Some people call it T-SPLOS. We call it TIA. That only passed in 3 of the 12 regions, which is good. Those 3 regions are reaping the benefits. They just started having revenue come in. They're getting their first projects underway. So that's a great thing. But the problem is there's just not enough money to do the big projects that we talked about a moment ago. So we've got to work with the private sector and figure out a game plan for getting these bigger projects done long term. One thing of note in the General Assembly this year, there is a provision that has passed the House and the Senate and the House. We're trying to get it actually eventually signed by the governor, is a change in our congressional balancing we do. We spread the money out statewide, and it allows for freight and logistics corridors to be exempt from that spreading of the money, which I think will help the freight and logistics industry a great deal. Just to give you a quick example, this is just a quick shot, and I'm sure Kurt's folks have a similar thoughts on this, but last mile connectivity, here's some good examples. Here's 3 products on this drawing here. Jimmy Loach Parkway connector, which is underway. We've got a design build job going now. We've got to buy the right of way and build the project. Then you got these other roads on the east side called Brampton Road Connector, and then we just finished a little bit of the 307 overpass, which is going to shave a lot of time off moving of freight in that Savannah port. So we are doing projects. It's just not enough. So we need more money to do the things that will move this state forward in relation to ports. There's just a quick shot of that. It's 307 railroad grade separation project in Savannah. So with that, I'll pipe down and let the next person come up. But just thank you for your time here today. We very much enjoy working with this industry. Everybody who comes to the state looking for a place to park their business, Gretchen Corbin and her staff work hand in hand with Georgia DOT on transportation. So there's a lot of coordination that goes on a daily basis, and we very much relish that opportunity. Thanks a lot.